Democratic Senator Jack Reed from Rhode Island. He's the top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee. He is also a veteran himself. Sir, you were in yesterday's classified briefing. I want to get to Venezuela in a second, but as Caitlin just noted, the Wall Street Journal reports that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, told lawmakers that the administration wants to buy Greenland, purchase Greenland, and downplayed any military operation there. Is that what you heard as well?
Well, I can't comment. It was a classified hearing on what I heard, but everything that's been publicly stated suggests that the president wants to acquire Greenland, and the president's rhetoric would suggest by any means. Threatening them by force might be a way to create a contractual arrangement, but this is completely unprecedented. Denmark is our NATO ally, and as the president of Denmark pointed out, attempts to seize or to intimidate them into surrendering Denmark would destroy NATO.
Well, we had Congressman Don Bacon on the show, and retired Air Force general. He said it's not even needed, that Greenland and Denmark would allow us to build as many bases as we want on Greenland anyway.
Oh, he's absolutely right. We have bases there. We've had bases there since the World War II era. They're a NATO ally partner. I think they would be highly interested in joining with us to protect their country as well as NATO, and building bases, sharing troops, working together.
Let's talk about Venezuela, because CNN's learned that Trump officials told lawmakers that Nicolas Maduro and their wife hit their heads as they attempted to flee U.S. forces during their capture. Their lawyers, Maduro and his wife, say that they sustained more significant injuries than that. Maduro's wife's attorney said she had bruising on her ribs. It looked as though that Maduro might have had a limp. Do you buy that it was just minor injuries, they just hit their heads?
I have no other information than what we heard last evening, and they discounted serious injuries. In fact, they tried to make the point that they wanted to get them out alive. But it's not unusual in kind of a situation like that, where you're being on and off helicopters, under fire, et cetera, where you get lots of collateral injuries.
There's a Venezuela war powers resolution vote coming up in the Senate, likely. On Thursday, Republican Senator Rand Paul told reporters that the operation meets his definition of war, and Congress should have been used to to declare war. Do you think there are enough Republicans in the Senate to vote for a war powers resolution in the way that for those who object to the operation?
Well, I think they should, frankly, because it violates clearly international law.
They say it was just a law enforcement operation.
It's not a law enforcement operation when you have Cyber Command, you have aircraft carriers, you have SALT, the 160th SOAR from the Rangers, et cetera. This was a military operation, and disguising it as anything else is, I think, just trying to be deceptive. The other factor here, too, is this operation has been connected to rhetoric about occupying Venezuela, which would definitely be illegal.
So if there are any boots on the ground that stay there?
Boots on the ground, or even control by going in and forcing the Venezuelans to concede resources to the United States or anything else like that.
You heard Schumer, perhaps, I'm not sure you actually did, but he spoke to us just a few minutes ago, and he said that he didn't get any good answers at the briefing in terms of like what comes next for Venezuela, how much is it going to cost, is the U.S. going to occupy Venezuela in any way? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, there seems to be no plan here. There's some concepts that they're floating around, but they have to actually get not only the cooperation of the Venezuelan government, but the buy-in from the Venezuelan people. And they have no idea how to go about and do that right now. It's just they have a couple of concepts, like I said, they're floating.
I want to turn to some breaking news out of your home state of Rhode Island, because the Justice Department just announced that the suspect in last month's mass shooting at Brown University and the subsequent killing of the MIT professor in Massachusetts, that he admitted to the attacks in a series of short videos that authorities recovered from some sort of electronic devices. Is that true? What can you tell us about it? Will this bring some sort of, I guess closure isn't the right word, but something to the grieving families?
Well, it'll help, I think, define the rationale in his mind. First of all, from what I've read about these tapes, it demonstrates that he was a homicidal maniac, that he resented everyone, apparently, because he was the smartest person in the world.
That's why he did this.
Well, that's one of the indications that they're getting, but I think they have to do much more research. But, you know, attacking students and then going after his high school classmate who's very successful, this was rage and jealousy born out of decades of resentment. And then the other thing it seems to reveal, too, is that the methodical way he went about it. So you had the worst of two worlds, a homicidal maniac who was very clever and ingenious in what he wanted to do. And it resulted in a real tragedy at Brown University, which has been felt by not just the state of Rhode Island, but the nation.
Yeah, no, our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Brown University and MIT as well. Thank you so much, Senator Reed. Really appreciate
Thank you, Jake.
having